Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's webinar on having influence, the importance of brand and profile. So you all would have received a 2-digit audio pin when you logged into the webinar so that you can take part in the conversation. If you've already entered your pin, can I just ask that you keep your line muted just until you want to make a comment or ask a question, just because we do have quite a number of attendees on the call, and just to avoid that background noise. If you prefer, you can also post any questions or comments in the chat or questions options in the webinar, and I can read them out to the group for you. But I do encourage you to join the conversation, share your experiences, ask any questions throughout the call. So now that we've got housekeeping out of the way, we have Slaven, the General Manager of William Buck, Victoria, facilitating this morning's call. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So is a business strategist and service-orientated transformational executive with extensive experience within professional services and healthcare. Fee was selected as the 2014 iAwards National and Victorian ICT Woman of the Year. So Fee's strengths are in transformational leadership through collaboration, influencing others, and has been integral to multiple mergers. She's also a proactive change agent with strong business acumen, commercial orientation, and a demonstrated ability to provide innovative and customer-centric solutions. So Fee is acknowledged as being an excellent communicator and thrives working with diverse groups. So Fee, thanks again.
You're very welcome, and welcome everybody. Nice to virtually meet you over the phone. Look, I'm going to go through the slides with you, but please interrupt me at any time. That's really important, and I'm going to stop and ask you along the way if there's any questions, but I'm also going to have a bit of time at the end as well so that you can ask questions, because this presentation is actually all about you. It's not about me at all. So thank you for the lovely introduction, Kira. That's fantastic. But let's move on, and so you get to know what I look like, I'm going to go to the next slide. If it will let me go to the next slide. So here we are. That's actually what I look like. So hopefully the voice matches the picture. So I've been in IT over for 15 years. I was a former CIO of an Australian professional services firm, and I'm now the General Manager, which means I head up marketing, finance, payroll, HR, IT, admin and facilities. So I get the lot, which is fantastic. I'm on 2 boards. I'm on Vic ICT for Women, which encourages women into the IT industry, and I'm also on the CIO Executive Council Advisory Board, and that's how I'm linked to these presentations as such. As Kira mentioned, there's a few things that I'm known for. I'm a regular contributor to CIO. I'm a director of Go for IT, which is a not-for-profit volunteer program that every 2 years runs, and it's running this year, where we encourage schoolgirls into IT as well. So years 7 to years 11 generally, of saying how cool IT is. So in 2014 we held a program, and it had 1,200 plus schoolgirls from 42 schools, and this year we're hoping for 1,500. So it's a free event. So if you're in Victoria, that's fantastic. And you know of any girl that wants to attend, then let us know, because even if they're in the country, we'll bus them there for free, which is a great thing. So obviously I'm passionate about women in IT and progressing them as such, and have won an award for my work doing that. But that's mainly based on all the efforts of the volunteers and people I work with. So that plastic trophy is fantastic, and went straight to the pool room, which is brilliant. But that's a real quick snapshot of who I am, because you need to know my brand, because that's going to flow through in this presentation, and also how we can increase your brand, because it's incredibly important. So why do we want to raise your profile? Well, the issue is that I'm assuming because you're on this program or because you're attending this session that you want to progress yourself, either becoming a CIO or CTO, or that you have ambitions to do something more. So, you know, there's many valuable lessons you're going to learn through the pathways, and understanding how you raise your profile is actually a really important part of it, because there's no good being great at everything and no one knowing that. So the development of your personal brand, you know, it helps everyone in many ways. Okay, so it helps you, so to be a guide for the good work that you're doing. So it's not just about seeking a new job, it's about being known for what you do. And it can help widen your career prospects either internally or externally, because you might just want your organisation to know better what you do. It also helps then have advocates and referrers. So instead of you having to say who you are all the time, if people know what you do and what you're famous for, in the literal terms, then they will speak on your behalf when they're at a meeting or a networking event, say, oh, I actually know such and such. So I'm hoping for, in my example, that when I'm not there, if someone wants to ask, does anybody know someone who could help us with recruiting, retaining or promoting women in IT, or has a passion, that someone I know go, see, Slaven does that, you might want to give her a bit of a buzz. And that's how your networks then branch out because of those advocates. It's important also to note that if you are looking for new roles, it's quite rare for CIO roles to actually be advertised. About 60 to 70% are often not advertised. They go through networking opportunities and linking in. They do seek recruiters, but again, the recruiters often seek advice from other CIOs or people who are senior in the industry. So that has its benefits in the fact that if you're known, it really helps get your name out there. But the downside is it keeps the pool quite small, and the downside is if you're not out and about and you're not known, then your name may not be raised, and that's a real concern to me, because I think that really limits our opportunity of getting innovative and new and exciting leaders. So we really need to get everybody's name out there so that the pool of selection is much greater. I'm certainly keen, not just for women, but in general for diversity options to improve, because I think we're limited there too. So if you're not on people's radar, they'll never find you, no matter how brilliant you are. So to be found, you've got to be seen. So there's actually something called a brand strategy, which I'd like you to think about, and that's 3 steps. And that's developing your brand, packaging your brand, and communicating your brand, okay? And if you think about that, we can work through it quite logistically and simply. So why should you care? Well, it's all about, as I said, what people are thinking you do at work, you know, that you want people to treat you in the way that is consistent with who you think you are. Who do you want to be famous for? And we'll talk about that. And what do you want to be famous for? So, you know, if you see yourself as a Ferrari and people are talking about you as a Mini, that's a big difference in perception. It's a bit of a car analogy that I'm probably not the best at, but that's how I equate to what you see and what other people see. So, you know, perceptions are also viral and can influence behaviour. So beyond those who contact, sometimes that can be incredibly positive. But as you can see and I'm going to give the Kardashians as an example, it can be quite negative as well. So you need to understand how you want to temper the brand that you give and how you would like to manage it. Because remembering, communication is 50% what you provide, 50% what is received. And so you've always got to think about it from the perspective of the observer. So if you are considering going down this path, you need to really evaluate, you know, what you thought, what other people thought, and what they think and what you think. And that means it is a bit of navel gazing and determining of people perceiving you the way you want to be perceived. So, for example, I would consider myself a very assertive person. I believe I'm strong and fair, but sometimes I know some of my team would probably think I'm a bit demanding and relentless. I think I'm direct, but some people could see that as scary. And I like to think that I'm empowering, but at times it could be seen as controlling. So it's really important you have a concept of what you think and what other people think. Does that make sense to everybody? I know you can't virtually nod your heads, but if there's any questions about that, just let me know now. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going, but again, please interrupt as you would like. So everyone has a brand, and these are some pictures of people with good, bad, and indifferent brands. And just so you know, the responses to these brands are going to be very different. Hello? Is there a question? Someone's taken themselves off mute, so it's quite noisy, just letting you know. I'm going to go back to this and just let you know that the perceptions of brands are very different. So some of you may look at Shane Warne and think he's a fantastic cricketer, a brilliant strategic person on the field, whereas other people may think he's a bit ditzy and does a lot of texting that's inappropriate. It depends where you sit. You might sit on both sides of the fence. But what I would say to you is that strong brands are intentional. They're deliberate and with managed outcomes. Whether you like the Kardashians or not, they are a very big brand, a multi-million-dollar brand. And they've popped up over the years from a singular tape that appeared from one of the girls and has grown since then. And their brand is carefully managed as such. It's not accidental. So if you have a strong brand, it's because you've made it that way. But if you have a poor brand, the same is true. It's because you've not spent any time on it. The good news is that you can change your perceptions. You can build a strong and powerful brand. And for people that have had issues in the public, they can rebuild those. You know, people do forget and they do move on, so it's a great thing. I think the important thing is that standing out can be a bit difficult at times because it does require you to step out of your comfort zones. You need to sometimes take risks and experience failure. If something doesn't work, you know, you need to try something else. And you need the conviction to get up and try again. I think many people think, and women particularly are good at this, if I work hard enough, I'll get noticed, which may be true, but don't forget that all your other peers, potentially, while you're sitting at the desk waiting to be noticed, may be running into your boss's office and telling them how good they are. So you are missing an opportunity. One of the things I hear a lot is, I don't have time to network, but my response is, you actually don't have time not to network if you'd like to proceed, because it's an important part of who you are and where you need to be to take those next steps. And the other thing is, networking isn't just about meeting people that you'll meet once and move on. You can develop really strong relationships that can help you personally and professionally, and you also might develop friends as well. Another line I hear a lot is, I've made it this far, I can rest now. Well, you know, we can all look at brands that thought they did a pretty good job and haven't gone any further, and in fact the brands have collapsed. Sometimes I hear from people who are more introverted than extroverted is, I don't care if anybody knows me, my work speaks for itself. And that in some ways is true. Your work speaks for itself in a very small environment, or the environment where it is actually discussed. But if you want to discuss in greater circles and at higher levels, they need to align it with you, who you are, what you're doing, and that is a part of your brand. And the last one is for people who are really less confident, who say, I have nothing to sell. Well, that's never true. You all have something that people are interested in, whether it's technical, personal, experiences, etc. So you do need to identify what that is. but certainly everybody has an opportunity to build upon their brand. So hopefully the pictures that I've shown you have invoked good ideas of what sort of things you want to be built for your brand. I think Nelson Mandela is a very high standard. He was in prison for many, many years, but of all the work that he did, that he just wouldn't give up, that people actually aspire to. So hopefully you'll be able to look at your pictures and go, well, what is it that I want to be famous for? So about that. So a personal brand is all about you. I like to call it brand you, and it tells us what is unique about you. Okay, so it's really important that it's not just your title, because a title sometimes helps, but sometimes it doesn't. If you have a wacky title, that will be even less important. You know, shows why you are valuable. It differentiates and defines you to others. So you're not just one of the crowd. You're not all goldfish. You're the green fish as such. And it forms a part of your networking activities. It gives you a reason to speak to people. It gives you opportunities to speak to people that you don't know, because you may find they have similar interests. So for me, I'm going to use me as an example a bit, because that's the brand I know. Because I'm on the Secretary for Vic ICT for Women, that gives me an opportunity to attend events and meetings and networks to really push getting women into IT. And because I'm the director of Go Girl, that helps me meet not only girls and schools and teachers, but also sponsors. So any vendors that would like to sponsor us. I also talk to governments. I talk to any industry people that are also struggling to get women into IT to promote their areas. So it gives me what I call a hook. Now, I'm absolutely passionate about it anyway, but the fact that I can then discuss it and say to anybody in the industry, oh, look, I'm passionate about women in IT. How many women do you have in your department? It's often a great opening question, because if people are doing well, then they're really keen to tell you about it. If they're not doing so well, they're often keen to understand how you may be able to help them. So it's really important. If you put your brand, you also need to have some goals and work out what your plan is. And we're going to talk about that a bit more. But remember, it's what you want to be known for, what you want to be famous for, and how people perceive you. Is there any questions in regards to that so far? Okay, well, let's get on to the most important.
Sorry, I was just going to say for you, if anyone does have any questions, if they just raise their hand in the webinar, I can take them off mute.
Yeah. So let's get to the most important thing, developing your brand. That's why you're here. That's why you're listening to me, because we want to understand, you know, more about you. So here's some key questions. So you need to think about what you want to do with your brand and be able to tell people, you know, what's unique about you, what differentiates you from the crowd, show why you're valuable, whilst being authentic. So there's no point putting together this persona that's not true. So if I tried to put out a brand that said I'm really shy and retiring and didn't really care about things, it'd be a pretty boring brand, but to be fair, it wouldn't be me, because I am not shy and retiring, and once you meet me, you know that straight away. So this is absolutely, it's who you are, what you stand for. So you should be asking some key questions, I think, to help you out of, you know, what do you love to do at work and even outside of work, you know? What do you not like doing? So what are you passionate about? Because if you get a bit of an idea of that, this is helping building your brand. It's really critical that you objectively look at yourself and you know what's important and valuable, because otherwise, you know, if you haven't got that passion or able to clearly articulate what sets you apart, you won't be clear in your branding. because your brand message is that combination of the value you provide and how it helps others, because it always is about what's in it for me. So what's in it for you at the moment is listening to me, because hopefully I will give you some better understanding how we can get you to leverage your brand, and that progresses you. So if you put that into concept, me helping is still all about you. Creating a brand is not really easy. I think, you have to have a single sentence that sort of answers the following questions of who's your target audience, and it may be varying. You might want general, you might want internal, external, you may be seeking a job, you may not be. Who do you provide this for? Well, it might be in general, external, again on LinkedIn, which we're going to talk about, or if it is for a potential employer, what do you want them to know? And remember, this is it's a growing and organic thing. It keeps evolving, it never stops. So your brand, you don't do it once, you keep working on it. So you can change it, you can massage it, and you can work on it to, for different audiences if that's what you like. So, so sometimes you need to be able to have that clear conversation about what you want to do, and work out what some of your aims are. So, something that I had written down for me for my branding was that I wanted to do some more recordings, not just audio but visual recordings, and it's quite funny because that is quite confronting, and when I did one I sort of didn't recognise that middle-aged white woman in front of me who was me, and so I found my skills were lacking in that area, and that's something that I'm now having to work on because I want to, because I think this adds to some of my branding. So if you consider these questions and how you might work through them, this is certainly going to help you as such. So ultimately though, if you get opportunities to do things and for someone to help you, then say yes. Also get them to help you and make sure that you test it on someone else, because if you provide some of your brand strategies and someone goes, who's that? That's a sign that it's probably not authentically you. Now there's many ways to differentiate yourself, and look, fortune does favour the bold. You have to be bold to be out there, and for people who are not as I was going to say, as extroverted or as confident, this can be quite confronting. So what you need to do is get to where you're semi-comfortable and then go a few steps further. So leverage the opportunities. So it might be to start off with that you're going to go online. It may be that you're not going to go online. Work out where you feel comfortable, but extend your barriers a bit more. Because if you don't try, you'll never know. And a wise person once told me that no won't kill you, and it is true. So be prepared to just do something a bit different to what you're currently doing, and then, and not in a reckless way, obviously, but certainly work through that, and then that should give you other opportunities as well. The Lean In book is very good from Sheryl Sandberg. I'm not on her pay list, but it is just something you could consider reading. So here's the next important part, is determining your brand. You need to craft a statement. You need to know clearly, I want to be known for, so that I can. And I've given you those words because that really helps, and then you can work through that actual process. You do need to do, some navel gazing and some real review of what you want to be known for, because you have to be able to walk and talk, consistently with that statement. You have to work out whether that differentiates you from anyone. So if your craft brand statement was, I want to be the best IT person I can be, it really doesn't give anything about you. It doesn't tell you about your objectives, it's a bit bland. It may be true, but it's just a little bit bland and it doesn't differentiate you. You want to be able to, from your statement, create those constructive and productive relationships. It's it's that hook so that you can have further discussions, and gives an opportunity for people to agree or disagree with you or ask for more information. Because once you've said your bit of a hook and your brand statement, then that's an opportunity to have more ongoing conversations and interactions, and that really is then people getting to know the true, authentic you. So if you were to ask me what my brand statement is, well, I am passionate about the recruitment, retainment and promotion of women in the IT industry, and my goal is to have 50-50 by 2020. It's a big goal, but something I absolutely aim for. And if you look at my LinkedIn, Twitter account, Instagram, you will see a resonating theme of those goals. So that's the authentic. So I put the Clark Kent and Superman in there because you are swapping between the two. But realistically, you're more Superman, Superwoman than the Clark Kent as such, because you always have your brand in consideration. So packaging your brand, there is two pictures that really do show some very different perspectives. I am clearly, I'm not a Kardashian fan at all, but they're just so easy when you're trying to show the yins and yangs, when you've got Mother Teresa versus Kim Kardashian. So something you need to think about is your feature benefit model, and that is a big term, but that's the brand called you. It's what you offer. So do you, some of the concepts that help you get your statement and work what your brand is. Do you deliver work on time every time? In other words, for a part of your statement, is it that your internal or external customers get dependable, reliable service that meets your strategic needs? That may be really fantastic for professional services. Or are you someone that anticipates and solves problems before they become crises? I mean, that's fantastic and something that people can really relate to and then would like to know more. Well, how do you do that? And again, that's getting more out of you of that, who you are and the conversations you can have. You might be able to then say to your clients, you save money and headaches by just having you on the team. Now, if that's internal and it's not true, it's going to be a bit hard to sell. But certainly if you were selling your services or promoting your brand, or if you had your own business, that's how you might go about it. One of the things that you quite often hear is that, you complete projects within a allotted budget. That's always important in IT, and if you've got an example, that's a great way of promoting that as well. It's not all about what you do, but it's certainly about how you really try to send the messages and your involvement. It's probably really important that you don't rely on just your title. I've said that before, but you don't want to be known as, for example, Slaven, the General Manager, or Slaven, the CIO. You want to be known for more than just your title, because I'm a believer that it is more than your title. I have many components that make up my brand, not only the work that I do here for William Buck in professional services, but the work that I do outside with the boards, and also other work that I do in volunteering as such. So, when you're writing down, and I'm a bit of a list writer, if you're not, that's fine, but I'm just giving you how I normally do it, if you have a list of what do you do that is remarkable or measurable or distinguished or adds value? What is it that you do at work or outside of work that you want to be famous for? Ask yourself, if I was being compared to other people, what may set me apart? What am I proud of? So this is how you're going to be viewed differently by people, because there's something that sets you apart from the other. you know, when you're talking about doing something new, you must be able to discuss it and talk about it without bragging, but without undervaluing your value. And that is probably one of the toughest things that everyone has to learn, because there's a fine line between telling people all the things you can do and then sounding like you're a bit of a know-it-all in some ways. But you do need to get that message out. What's worse, though, is if you don't tell anyone, especially when you're doing great work, it's an opportunity lost. And it's not just a loss for you, but for your department or your firm or even the industry that you're in. If you were a fantastic speaker, for example, on security, if people don't know that, how will you ever get asked to be speaking at seminars or conferences, etc.? And that's not good for you, but it's definitely not good for the industry, because we want more expertise in areas. So, and we want fresh blood. We want people with new, innovative, exciting ideas, and that's what you guys are. So you need to be able to take shameless credit for what you're doing. You can't claim, of course, that you've put in a project if you were one component of it. You can claim that you worked on the project and what you were actually accountable for. So be aware that you shouldn't embellish to a point that it's not true. So that goes back to that authentic aspect as well. Americans are known for being quite brash in some ways, and in fact, we actually need to learn a bit of brashness and self-confidence from the Americans, because the Australians tend to downplay it a bit. And women tend to do it more than men. So for any of the women in the audience, you just need to think about that as well. It is hard, but being hard makes it worthwhile. So at the very least, from this outcome of what do you want to be famous for? LinkedIn is a very powerful tool, and I've sort of talked about it a little bit. I certainly think that it's being used more and more, and it's not just for sales and it's not just for recruitment, but it is for getting information out there. So I do believe it's an important tool, and you should keep it up to date, and it should be well populated, because people do view that. I, as the general manager, whenever I interview anyone, the first thing I do is go and look at their LinkedIn and any of their media profiles. So I do a Google search. It's just a standard habit, and I look at what you've written. Does it align with your CVs, and whether it correlates as such. Here are some of the buzzwords that are overused, and I quite like them, and I think that probably we've all used them over the time. So it's a good point, and these do change, so it's worth keeping an eye on them as well. But you know, if you were to write, for example, as your catchphrase as such, I'm an innovative and passionate problem solver who is motivated to be a dynamic entrepreneur. That's a lot of work, but doesn't actually tell me anything. So when you've got your little catchphrase, your brand statement, you need to look at what it's actually saying and what image does it conjure. Is that, again, and I'm sorry to be repetitive, but that, does it align with what you want to be famous for? Does it support it? Does it sound authentic? What image are you getting from your profile? So your brand statement links with your LinkedIn, which links into your CV, which links into any social media you've got. It's all that consistency that you use over the time. So giving you lots of information, I know. To communicate your brand, you need to use multiple channels. I do believe you need to learn how to use LinkedIn. I think it's really important that if you're budding to be seen, you need to use some of these social medias. I personally really like a couple of them, and for me, and that's just a personal thing, I use Twitter a lot and Instagram. And I had set myself goals to do that because 3 years ago I decided to lift my brand profile, and now I just really enjoy it. I enjoy sharing that, and I think it's worthwhile. But I would say to you that the tool points of sharing your brand, such as Twitter and and Instagram and even Facebook or Google Plus, whatever you would like to use, should take up about 15% of your time. So if you're allocating, 10 hours a week, an hour and a half of that should be on your actual tools. The rest should be on your public facing and meeting people, contributing, actually meeting and networking. And that means attending events, and that's really important. Often when we're very busy people, we don't attend events, and the more we don't attend events, the more isolated we become and the less our brand is effective. So don't go to the opening of everything, but certainly go to internal events or external events and maybe set yourself time to do that. I know that's very hard for people with families, but if you set yourself some goals, then I would really encourage you to stick to that. You can also do things on webinars like you're doing today, linking in, and I would very much hope that you would all try and link in with me after this, or if not, yourselves, because it's a great opportunity to share who you are, and that's all a part of this message. You can speak at events.
Sorry to interrupt. I've just had a question come through.
Beautiful.
So do you have any techniques on how to promote yourself without being too brash?
It is a difficult question on being brash, because you just have to be confident in what you do. And I believe the confidence is a part of it. So if you do the pre-work, and then if you say, because talking about yourself is not quite natural, but if you've got something you're very proud of or you're passionate about, I find that's the easiest way, because people will see that you're proud and passionate, and they also get involved through your enthusiasm. So for me, talking about getting girls into IT is really exciting, and I deal with volunteers, how I go about getting other people involved and sponsors. And if I talk about that with enthusiasm, it's not just about me running that, because I'm doing that with volunteers, but I'm spreading the message, and then people can see why it's important to me. And hopefully they get that message of, oh, she's really involved in that. I want to know a bit more. So I think if you're proud, you're authentic, and you're really comfortable because you've put that pre-work in and thought about it, that will help you. Has that answered the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, beautiful. So getting back to communicating your brand, please don't be scared of speaking at events. It does take a bit of courage, and I understand that, but you can start internally and then you work externally. Recently I was asked to speak at an event, which I said yes, and I never planned to speak at it. And I went and saw my IT manager here, who is quite shy, and it was about us going over to the cloud. And I said, oh, I think you should do this. And he gave me that absolutely horrified look and said, okay. And we worked on the presentation together. He practiced on me, then we practiced on our team, and then we got our office to be a bit of a practice. He did such a fantastic job, first time ever, and he's now been asked to speak at another event, which is much bigger. And that's fantastic for his brand, it's fantastic for the firm, and it's just such a great opportunity. So even though it may give you a little bit of chest pain, please consider doing something new, because it really is a great opportunity. And help others. If you get an opportunity that you can't leverage, then please help others and get involved. Certainly, if you pay it forward, I'm a big believer that the karma will look after you and good things will come back. Remember to stay on message though. It's really important. Don't get too distracted. Don't have too many messages either, because it's really hard. And if you ramble a bit, you lose that passion and you lose that enthusiasm bit and the clarity. So that's why that brand statement and knowing who you are and what you want to be is really important. And be good at what you do. That's because what your brand wants to be known for ultimately is that you're great at writing, or you're great at speaking, or you're fantastic at project management, or you're a really good communicator. You've got so many options, and that's why identifying what you are proud of really helps. So if you're wondering how important this can be, if you look at some of the tools, it really does get out and about. So social networking, I said that I like to use that. I'm a big supporter of it. If you use effective social networking, you are getting your advocates and your brand people out there exponentially. So in 2003, on the 5th of May, you know, LinkedIn was launched, okay? 12 years later, you know, of August of this year, LinkedIn had over 347 million members. I would get LinkedIn requests nearly daily, and which is fantastic. You can actually work through and meet so many people. I know, and I'm going to talk a bit more about LinkedIn because I think it is important, but it just showcases how many people are there, and it's not just nationally, it's internationally as well, especially if you're interested in doing work in that area. Twitter is also surging ahead. I'll put some statistics there for you to have a look at. But if you look at Stocks, the MD of Twitter, who's an absolute passionate supporter of women and diversity in IT, she's got lots of interesting things to say. And so I know about from Karen, and I have met her a couple of times, but through the events that I run, that she's passionate about F1, so she's into motorsports. She's also very passionate about netball and all the other things she supports via her Twitter account. And she does tweet all these. They're not, it's not a PA or anybody else tweeting. So you get to know a part of her character through these messages. And I think it's a little bit important to give of yourself just so you don't look so robotic. And particularly because we're in IT industries, people think we're just geeks sometimes, which it can't possibly be true. So when you are doing your social media, if you're comfortable with it, give a little bit of yourself. That doesn't include pictures that are inappropriate, and you're all way too senior to know that. But consider what you do want to get out there, and whether how much of your family or personal life you actually want to share. I think that's important. So moving on to LinkedIn best practice, and I'm just going to give you some examples because I think it is important. I've talked about keeping it authentic quite a bit through this, and I think it's really important. You know, people will check what you're saying, and certainly with your CV, so don't make things up. Make sure that the time frames, like your CV, all align. You certainly don't want to be looking at someone's LinkedIn and consider it a bit of a fairy tale, because that's not what you're after. If you've got more to say than the actual categories, then put the information in. You can always adapt what you need to do and share that as such. But start getting yourself connected. So whenever you go to an event or attend something or do what we're doing now, it's an opportunity to send a LinkedIn invite and personalise the invitation. So, Fee, I heard you speak today, can we connect? Or Kira, I met you at the CIO Summit, can we connect? It personalises that bit, and it's more likely to be accepted. I'm a big believer, and this is where I may differ from people connecting. I connect with people that I'm very interested in. I rarely say no. Some people say only connect with people that you've met. I'm actually not a believer of that. I believe that we should be connecting with more people, because otherwise how will I help and share the passions that I have? So any woman in the industry that connects with me, I automatically say yes, whether Australian or international, because that helps get my messaging out there. I know that differs from some other people, and you have to decide whether you feel comfortable saying yes. Certainly have a look at their yeah.
Sorry, Fee, so just with connecting with other people on LinkedIn that you haven't necessarily met, do you keep that industry related?
No, not necessarily. If there might be someone that I look at and I've heard about them, or I've known of them or I've read an article, I'll link it in and say why I'm connecting. You know, I'm passionate about diversity, or I read your article, or you know, your profile really interests me. I give a reason why.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I said, so you give them a little bit of background.
I do. I don't just do that. I want to be the LinkedIn, personalise it, and then they understand why you want to be involved, and then you can have more conversations as such. So yeah, by personalising it, it gives them a reason to accept you.
Great, thanks, Fee.
And also, Kira, it's really important, if you only deal with the people in IT, you're missing out. There's so much to be learnt from marketing, from HR, from legal. You know, we're not islands, and IT has always been criticised for not understanding sometimes what the business is doing. So your LinkedIn should be linked in with vendors, with providers, with business people. Just give yourself some really good scope and depth. Again, no won't kill you. Yeah. So if someone says no, it's okay. Move on. Maybe ask them again next time. Don't ask too much. It looks like you're stalking. As such. You can also get active in LinkedIn groups. So join groups that you're interested in and have conversations. Do status updates. So, you know, the great thing about LinkedIn, you can turn it on and off. So if you're correcting spelling errors or just tweaking little bits, turn it off. If you're publishing an article or writing an opinion or got something to say or doing an announcement, absolutely, because every person you're connected to then gets that message. So if you've just done a course or you've just read a fantastic article, then let people know, get their involvement. And because then they go, oh, that person is interested in that area, or aren't they well read, or isn't that great that they're volunteering there, or such and such. It piques interest. And remember, you are then in the back of their mind if they're having a discussion with someone else or thinking of an opportunity that you potentially could be very aligned with. So it's not just you getting your brand out there, then you've got all these advocates and referrers as such. So again, I know people will say, no, only do the trusted. I don't. I accept anyone. If they then try to sell to me and blatantly doing something I don't like, I just disconnect them. That's the click of a switch, and I'm in control. And if they were to go any further, I would contact LinkedIn. I've never had that. So I have had a dating request once. Yeah, you just disengage from that person. That was weird. But it's not a problem, so manage it as such. I'm not a big one on giving testimonials. You can, but I don't believe that people really value them as such. I think that it's better to get to know people and start communicating with them individually. And quite often I'll get a LinkedIn request and then I'll get a communication afterwards saying, I'm really interested in what you're doing, or I'm doing this, would you like to connect and have a cup of coffee? And that's fantastic. Remember, it's a hook, and then you can go further. And the other thing is, it's not just all about you, though it is. Keep an eye on other people's status updates, and you can initiate contact. So if they've read an article or they're asking for your opinion, you can be involved as well. So that's how you're expanding what you do, and working with a group and finding your passions. Because if you're not quite sure what it is at the moment, this is a way of finding out. So 5 reasons why you should be online. Well, the very number one is you're in the IT industry. You cannot be in the IT industry and not have an online presence. I find that the weirdest thing in the world. I once was interviewing a marketing manager and they had no social networking presence, and I said, so what is your brand? And they were quite stumped and said, I don't have one. I said, well, that's very concerning for a marketing manager. So one of my interview questions quite often is, what is your brand? And I've already checked before you've walked in there. So we do take it quite seriously, if you know what I mean. So social networking is skyrocketing. You know, use it, leverage it. It can be your friend. You're not necessarily going to be finding jobs traditionally anymore. And even if you're not looking, that's okay, because sometimes opportunities find you. For example, me doing this today is because Kiera phoned me and said, "Oh, Fee, would you mind doing this?" And I said, "Sure, that'd be great." And that's how it came about. So she thought of me, I said yes, you've now met me. So that's how an opportunity can work. You know, people should manage their careers as an entrepreneur, even though you can be very happy where you are. There may be alternatives and opportunities to do more, to do differently, or to change industries or careers. You know, the opportunity is with you guys, and so if you manage your brands, it's just putting you back in control in case sometimes it feels like your firm or your area is in control of you, and it shouldn't be that way. I think the traditional resume is really virtual now, because I certainly go on to LinkedIn and have a look, and a real CV will give me more, there's no doubt, because you don't want pages and pages. But I really like to get a look and feel and see if your social media is then linked into what you're saying as such. And I think, don't be fooled. My #1 reason for employing people is that you fit into the culture of William Buck, for example, that you have the passion, the determination to be here. If you don't know how to use a certain piece of an application or a piece of equipment, that's okay. I can teach you that. That's not a problem, or our experts can. That can be taught. But what I can't teach you is your enthusiasm, your ability to communicate. You'll want to be there. So if you've got that passion and you've already got ready to share that, then you're 3/4 of the way there. 10 poor habits, these aren't really showstoppers, as in you should know these already. You know, if you're lying or being fake, you'll get caught out, and that's not who you want to be anyway, so don't do it. If you don't deliver on promises, or if you said you're going to do things, it does shine through. If your LinkedIn profile's half done, that's a really bad sign. Better to just keep working on it. It takes 10 minutes a day. When you're eating your lunch at your desk, like most of us do, just proactively work on it, and it becomes an easier task. Don't go for quantity over quality. Everybody loves one good tasting glass of wine over a bottle of really bad wine. That's the best example I can give you. If you promote too much, you sound like a bragger, as we said, but if you don't promote, it's just as bad. So try and find that line. And ask people, or your friends, or your peers, or your partners, is it promoting you enough? Have you missed anything? Because they're a really good sounding board. The worst thing is not having a plan, because if you don't have a plan, you tend not to do anything, and you know, that's not where you want to be. If you switch tools and systems too often, then you won't do it properly. So pick 1 or 2 that you really like. So if it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, Facebook, whatever it is, Yammer, whatever you like, then pick a couple and work on them and stick to them, because then your persistence will pay off. There will be rewards in that, because people will be able to see your history. Overexposure is too much, and that's the Kardashians, the overexposure, but a lack of exposure is just as bad, because otherwise no one's talking about you and you can't be seen. And the worst of all is if you're not confident and you're being overwhelmed and doing nothing, well, then that's letting you down. And we don't want to let you down. We want to brand you up and forward focusing, because it is all about you. So if you do all this, the great thing is that you're going to make the impression consistently, and people will start talking about you in a great way. You're going to stand out from the crowd, so that is really fantastic. That reputation is going to precede you, and people are actually going to come and see you about things and actively engage you. It raises your profile and visibility, whether you're staying or going or looking. It gives you options, and the best comfort feeling in the world is knowing you have options. I'm comfortable, I love my job, I want to stay, but oh, what's out there? No, I don't want to do that, I want to stay, or yes, I am interested. But having those options is the best thing. And the ability to better communicate will really help you in all the work that you do. So it's not just about building the brand, it's going to help you in your day-to-day activities. So that's really important. So I want to say thank you very much for listening to me. I've been rabbiting on. I have noticed a mistake. The old date of when our catch-up next will be you're still there, Kira. I apologise, my head down in shame. I should have updated that, and she'll tell you when we're going to catch up after that. But I really thank you for listening to me, and there's my branding if you'd like to talk to me.
Thanks, Bea. We did have a question come through just around LinkedIn. So what recommendations about recommendations, sorry, can you have too many recommendations on LinkedIn?
I don't think you can have too many recommendations. I'm not sure that everybody looks at them all the time. You know how people say, I support you on this, I support you on that. That's lovely. I sort of look at them and go, yeah. What I want to do is actually read what you're doing. I like the content, what you've done, what you've achieved, what do I glean out of it. I actually look for what are you famous for. You know, so if you're saying you're famous for strategy and no one supported you in strategy, I suppose that's a bit of an issue. But again, that's because you're relying on someone else to push the button, Kira. So not everybody pushes the button to say they recommend you. They may say, yes, in person, I'd absolutely recommend you for that. But when you're looking at it online, they just don't feel comfortable pushing that button. So I don't think they're life-threatening if it's not there. But you then have to make sure that the messages you put on your LinkedIn communicate adequately what you want to be famous for.
Great, thank you. Sorry, we've got another question that's, oh, no, that's okay. Not a question that's come through. So I will be sharing the slides of the presentation after the call today, just for anyone that was interested in that.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time, and I'm hoping to see some LinkedIn requests from you when you're introducing yourself.
That's great. Thanks so much, Bea, for taking the time, and thanks for everyone for joining the call. We'll speak to you all next time. Have a good day, everyone.